For the most part, it's going to be the same role he's been in. So then you have Bryce Brown and Christine Michael saying whether or not they're going to who's going to be the starter there. And Bryce Brown was in practice, practicing as the starter. Based on what Carroll has been saying, I expect Bryce Brown to get the bulk, have Christine Michael be a good, solid backup, and Fred Jackson be the third down role. But it could be the exact opposite. So it's very scary to actually start any one of those three. But if I had to start one, it would definitely be Bryce Brown.
Yeah, it's really a brutal situation. There's no way you can confidently start any of them. If you have to make the decision, as of now, Carroll has said that Brown would be the de facto starter.
Is that the word? Because I was wondering, what are you hearing from Carroll? Because I have been in the dark about it.
That's the last thing I had read somewhere. We can verify that.
Okay.
However,
because there was a beat reporter that said he thought that they would split carries.
Yeah. I'm just saying Brown will start.
Okay.
He'll be given the first opportunity. Everyone's going to be given a chance, but Michael knows the system.
I mean, Pete Carroll. These were some of the words after they signed Christine Michael. I mean, he knows the system exactly. He's a much better backup than DeJuan Harris,
or even Bryce Brown.
Or Bryce Brown. But I mean, one of them has to be the backup. But he said that that he likes Christine Michael, but he said that doesn't mean he's going to be the feature guy or starter or anything like that. He's just coming in here and trying to help us out, and we'll see if that works out. That's what he said about Christine Michael.
Okay, that's helpful. That is helpful, and I think this situation, like many others in fantasy football, to the patient one goes the spoils very often. A lot of people want to lock and load a lineup on Tuesday. I can't tell you to do that. I can tell you who I would lock in if today was the day you needed it, but you need to pay attention to those reports, because if tomorrow we come out and if what Jason's saying gets confirmed, Carroll says, hey, he's going to get the lion's share. It's going to be Bryce Brown. That's going to change how I start him compared to guys like Hightower or Gore or some of the other names. So
the voyage of Michael this year, let's just break it down from a player standpoint, is a pretty fantastic voyage. Of you start the year, Super Bowl contending team, right?
Yes.
You get traded away to Dallas. You're like, okay, well this could be worse. This could be worse, but. And then Dallas, you're like, okay, it's okay. And then they fell apart. Like, oh, you get cut. You get picked up by a practice squad on a team that may or may not make the playoffs. Then back to a Super Bowl contending team. Whee!
Yeah, and we'll see. He'll do what he always does.
I'm not saying that Michael's going to be the reason they're there. I'm just saying his voyage around the NFL is pretty funny.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about LeGarrette Blount. He was placed on injured reserve, which means the Patriots have now lost 2 running backs to injured reserve this year with Deion Lewis and LeGarrette Blount.
I'll tell you what's going on.
We don't know if Blount will even be back in Dynasty Leagues. I don't think he'll be back in New England.
Arian Foster's brother is at it again, people.
Yes, you put a lot of blame on him. Unduly.
It's a joke.
There's some rumors about Steven Jackson that have not come to fruition. Brandon Bolden is a very valuable player to that team, but you still have to be looking at depth, at reliability, at not inducing an injury on a very valuable special teams player in Brandon Bolden. And he's not really your prototypical every down, not the guy that they want for the playoffs. Monte Ball was signed to their practice squad. He's weighing in at about 230, 240 pounds compared to when he was drafted at 205. Steven Jackson has 3.7 a carry last year, hasn't played all season, probably not in game shape, although he's known for being in shape. I don't know if they're going to sign him or not. Nothing imminent is what I'm hearing, so that has no bearing onto this week's game, so it's Brandon Bolden this week.
Yeah, unless they sign someone last minute, that it would have to be someone like a Steven Jackson. They sign anybody below that kind of level, you can't imagine they're going to come in and be ahead of Brandon Bolden. So at this point for this week, I think it's Brandon Bolden, and I think it's James White as well. You're going to see a few more carries go his way, and maybe just a different game plan for the weapons that you have. And everything changes every week with the Patriots. So you don't really – it's almost no different, because if you just take LeGarrette Blount out, put Brandon Bolden in, you still – are you really confident starting Brandon Bolden? No, not really.
Yeah, I agree with you. You're not really confident. So he was obviously a big waiver wire pickup. I think teams like myself who are desperate for running back would have loved to just roll him out there and see if you get that lucky game where the big back gets 2 touchdowns in New England. Let's move on. There is a lot of news. I'm not going to skip anything because I think it's really important that everybody get caught up on the big news here. So if you guys think of something else or something breaks during the news, let me know. TJ Yeldon did not practice. The report is a sprained MCL. Most of the time, that is a multi-week injury. That being said, Fred Jackson has played straight through it before. We don't expect Yeldon to play this week. He's out.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that. He's out. He does say that he hopes to play next week. How much do you like Denard Robinson this week?
Denard Robinson, and we'll get to this later, and I'll give my reasons why.
At home versus Atlanta, by the way.
I like Denard Robinson quite a bit this week. I think of all the waiver claims, he's the guy that he's the only guy you can start confidently this week. I'm not so sure about that week 16. It is normally a multi-week injury, but we have seen with Yeldon once before in week 7 where it looked for sure like Yeldon was going to be out and Denard was going to be the guy, and Yeldon started and got all the carries and was okay. So, when I look at an injury to a player, the best thing of predicting the future with them is looking at their past. And so it's too small a sample size with Yeldon, but we've just seen that once. So I'm definitely not going to say, well, an MCL keeps him out week 16.
And I will retract the official out. It is not an official out. So doubtful for this week.
But when the news is coming out that a guy hopes to play in week 16,
yeah,
you need to be prepared for him to be out. I like Denard Robinson a lot this week. To me, he's not a guy who can do it week after week after week. But good news, everybody. 1 week. That's what you need from Denard Robinson this right now in a great matchup. I with a volume. Who else is going to get carries and catches?
Denard Robinson, Frank Gore.
Ooh, I'd go Robinson.
I would as well.
Okay, I'm just putting some. Those are the decisions people are making.
Fresh. He is fresh.
I'm going to stay at the running back position right now, and then I'll come back to Eifert and Edelman and some of the other news. Ron Rivera has ruled out Jonathan Stewart. Stewart's out. The reports in weeks past have been Cameron Artis-Payne, the rookie who we've talked about in the beginning of the season, might have the bulk of the early down work. But yesterday, Ron Rivera kind of came out and said, well, it's probably going to be Fozzie. It could be Tolbert. Cameron Artis-Payne will have his chances.
It's a mess.
So to me, this is called reading the game flow. It really is. And to me, playing with a different offense, like the production from Jonathan Stewart has been statistically nearly twice as efficient as the other backs when they've gotten carries this year. So the offense, to me, it's going to struggle to some degree. Am I wrong? If you don't have a guy that's been twice as efficient as the other running backs,
yeah,
I mean, they can make adjustments. I'm not saying they can't.
It's very possible it struggles. I'm not going to doubt Cam.
No, and it's not so much that I think Cam's going to have a problem. It's just you're going to New York. Game flow-wise, what do you project as a score in this game, and who will be out there in that context?
I think it'll be a higher scoring type game. And what I mean by not doubting Cam is I think Cam will pick up the slack, and he'll take over for the lack of Jonathan Stewart. I think the running backs will be okay. The Giants are a very poor running defense, so I don't think there will be much trouble for Carolina, really.
But what does that mean?
Who is the guy?
Like, here's the thing. Here's what I'm getting at, and maybe I didn't explain it good enough. If the Giants are out of the game in the first quarter, it's going to be a lot of Tolbert or maybe some opportunities for Cameron Artis-Payne in the end of the game. If the Giants are putting up points at home, fighting for the playoffs, a little bit of Carolina's defense is on fire, but you've got Odell Beckham Jr.
Right now, based on
Fozzie would be out there in a close game. Is my point.
I would play Fozzie.
Yeah, if you have to play one, you have to play the guy that has been said as the de facto starter because he gets first opportunity. Now, I could absolutely see a game where you're giving him that first role, that like veteran start, because he's been there so long, and but then roll to the rookie. I could see that happen. What I would say is you don't want to start Fozzie, and you definitely can't start Cameron Artis-Payne. But with what is coming out about Jonathan Stewart as far as week 16, maybe resting, then we look at the history of Jonathan Stewart. When he gets injured, that, generally speaking, is something that is a little bit slower to come back from. So I would want both of those guys, or either of those guys, Fozzie or Cap, on my bench and wait and see, because I think one of them is going to be very valuable.
But
we just don't know who.
You cannot wait. There's 2 weeks left.
Well,
How do you wait and see?
There are
you just
plenty
mean
of
until
teams.
you start on Sunday morning?
No. I'm saying for week 16. I mean, we make defensive special team grabs for week 16. I'm saying that these are good week 16 guys.
So who's the guy this week?
This week, it's got to be Fozzie.
Okay, so you would start Fozzie over Bolden, or no?
No.
You start Brandon Bolden.
Yes.
I'd go Bolden.
Would you start Fozzie Whitaker or Chris Polk?
I would start Fozzie Whitaker.
Fozzie.
Jonathan Grimes.
Fozzie.
Fred Jackson.
Fozzie.
Fozzie.
Alfred Morris.
Probably Fozzie.
Okay. All right. That's
Waka
what I need.
waka.
That's what I need to know. So, Ian Rappaport reports, like I said, nothing imminent between. Oh, we already talked about Steven Jackson. All right. Julian Edelman practiced in full.
Hey, that's dangerous.
This is dangerous for Danny Amendola enthusiasts.
Well, Danny Amendola was already getting limited work, where you can see that he's still coming back from that the injury. The Patriots are not playing him full. They didn't play him full time last week. And funny enough, on this, one of the newest news blurbs is Calvin Pryor from the Jets saying that Dez Bryant doesn't look the same since which maybe this is or is not, functional news. But if other players are talking about, man, Dez Bryant does not look the same since that foot injury. Edelman had the exact same injury, right?
Yeah.
I thought he had a Jones fracture.
That
in
was
his
the
foot.
initial report. I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I don't.
Either way, the Edelman, let's say he plays this week, I'm not playing him.
That's interesting because I have the completely opposite opinion. I think if he's healthy enough to be put out there, in their situation right now, if he starts, he'll be what Gronk did last week, which he'll be utilized to the full. I think that what the practice reports say on Edelman is that he looks super crisp in and out of routes and looks good. So I guess that's a gut call for you as an individual fantasy owner. If you have the room to start somebody else, I understand the protection against the injury. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I can break the tie here at least and just say my personal, if this was a choice I was making on my team, if Edelman plays, which I got to think if he's practicing in full that he's going to play, then I would start him, and I would, again, hedge my bets against, if you've got other good options to start, then sure, wait a week. That's a luxury. But I think if Edelman plays, most people should start him. And if Edelman plays, I would not start Danny Amendola. I would look elsewhere.
Yep. Tyler Eifert is not practicing yet from the concussion situation.
Oof.
So we don't have anything else to report other than we'll know more in this week and we'll tell you whether we think he's going to start. We have our starts of the week at the tight end position at the end of today's show. So stay tuned for that if you need another guy to pick up.
Yeah, spoiler alert. It's not Tyler Eifert. It's not our start of the week.
No, he's not.
My gut tells me he's not going to play.
I know. I feel the same way.
When people don't practice coming off of a concussion a week later, that's not usually a good sign.
All right. We do expect C.J. Anderson to play in Week 15 against the Steelers, but how much can you really expect from him?
If they think he's back, he's going to get out there.
All right. A guy.
Because Ronnie Hillman was atrocious.
But would you start him?
Well, maybe
Fozzie Whitaker or C.J. Anderson this week?
Fozzie Whitaker.
Fozzie, I would
Okay.
think. They're playing Oakland, though. That's tough.
Yeah, but they're playing the Steelers, the #1 fantasy run D. I mean, C.J. Anderson is.
Oh, who? Never mind. For some reason, I was thinking the Broncos were playing Oakland.
Oh,
Because I was way off. Way off.
That is not correct.
Thank you. Thank you for the update.
So we'll move on. Dante Moncrief is in a walking boot. It doesn't look good.
What? His walking boot doesn't look good?
It's not very stylish.
He hasn't had enough people sign it.
Fashion police.
Bedazzle it.
Yeah. My wife is to the rescue. I believe, and I could have gotten this report wrong, but it looked like the Colts offense is in a walking boot.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Here's the incredible thing about the Colts right now, and we'll get into it in the matchup. Trending the wrong direction. Giving up a lot of points over the last 2 weeks, something like an average of 49 a game or something ridiculous. So Yeah, not looking good for that situation. But if Moncrief's out, do you just de facto start Hilton and expect the volume to be there because he's been all right with Hasselbeck?
Yeah, I would start him either way, but if Moncrief is out, maybe he gets a little target bump.
All right, a couple more quick bits of news. Matt Schaub's expected to start against the Chiefs. So,
really?
So yes. So that is
that helps. That helps Buck Nasty.
It might help. Yeah,
sure.
It might help Buck Allen. It might also help the Chiefs' defense more than Jimmy Clausen because 2 pick sixes, 4 interceptions in his last 2 starts. Andre Ellington not expected to play, so
David Johnson
and Alshon Jeffrey limited at Wednesday's practice. With Alshon Jeffrey,
I couldn't let it go. Sorry.
That's fine. I respect that.
Thanks.
With Alshon Jeffrey, though,
all in.
you cannot ignore a report about his calf
No
in practice.
way can you ignore that. This calf has been a lingering problem all year long. It has affected whether or not he's able to play. It's affected how he plays in the game, and so this is concerning news. If you're an Alshon Jeffrey owner, it might make my difficult decision between Mike Evans and Randall Cobb very easy this week. If he misses,
The answer may be both.
the answer may be both.
Right.
Except for you have to choose one tonight. If you're going to play Mike Evans,
Oh,
you have to start him today.
Thursday night.
No, no. Well, that
So I
means
guess Mike Evans is
that
in your
means
lineup.
Mike Evans is definitely in my lineup, and I will not put him in my flex. Just another
Eddie Royal.
weekly public service announcement. Put him in your wide receiver.
Would you handcuff Alshon Jeffrey with Eddie Royal in the event that he's out?
No,
You would not.
I would not. I don't think Eddie Royal is going to.
No Marcus Wilson.
Right. I just don't see Eddie Royal right now, how he's been this year. I don't see him being a replacement for Alshon Jeffrey. I would hope that playoff teams have a better option on their bench
Fair enough.
than that replacement.
Fair enough. That makes a lot of sense.
Eddie Royale with Chiefs is just not getting targets.
No.
So
Yeah.
But he just came back from injury. So I still think he has
that's
a lot
fair.
of potential. So.
Yeah,
fair.
he's been injured all year. It hasn't been good for him. So before we get to the fantasy forecast, I want to take a second and thank today's sponsor, which is PokerStars.net, one of the most fun places to play any game imaginable. If you like poker, if you enjoy the game, go to PokerStars.net. It's completely free. It's easy to get started. You click a button, you install their software. All you need to register is an email. That's it. And you get 1,000 free chips, and it reloads for free every couple times every hour. So you can play forever for free. It's a fun thing to do with you and your friends. You can grab it on your iPad, your iPhone. You can be sitting, waiting for hours for the movie. Star Wars to start.
Play some poker.
Play some poker on your phone for free, for fun. You can also start for free a club for you and your friends. So if you've got friends across the country or across the city or across the neighborhood, they don't even have to come to your house anymore. So here's what you do.
Stay out.
Yes, to stay away, play for fun, play online, play on your devices. Sign up at PokerStars.net. Get 1,000 play chips to get you started and have fun today.
Fantasy Forecast.
That was a lot of news.
I know.
I'm exhausted.
I didn't feel, and there's more news I had to leave out, smaller stuff that we'll get to later in the week, but it just is hard to leave something off where people are making decisions, and I just didn't want to do it. So, Thursday night game, as we alluded to, Buccaneers facing the Rams, and, well, I really like the Buccaneers defense.
That is very fair. Very fair.
They're still fighting for the potential of a playoff. Are they? They're not eliminated, right? Because they're 6-7, I believe.
Mathematically, I don't believe so.
No, they wouldn't be, because the 8-5 Minnesota Vikings, 6-7. You've got the the potential mathematical chance there.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Well, what I'm trying to do is come up with an angle as to why they're going to play hard tonight.
Well, I'll tell you who's trying to come up with an angle is the NFL Network. As they're stuck again, they're like,
I know the angle.
Bucks versus Rams.
No way, man.
What
you
is
seen
it?
those color jerseys?
I love the color
They're
jerseys.
coming
Is
out
it
again
color rush
tonight. Oh yeah.
Oh, we got
The Rams are like highlighter yellow.
really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That now I'm gonna watch.
Highlighter, but that's Seattle.
Well,
Seattle has that neon green.
no, that's like highlighter green.
Yeah.
This is yellow. green and yellow.
Those are actually different colors, Mike.
Oh, but just as a highlighter. But the Rams highlighter yellow. Where on their
What? They're yellow.
The
and
Rams
blue.
are yellow.
they're
yellow.
they are not highlighter yellow.
Yeah, I know, but the color rush, that's the whole.
You pick a
deal.
color from your team.
Yes.
And then you run it through the highlighter machine.
And then you run it through
Yes.
the extreme machine is what you do, Mike. You
How
take
many-
one of your colors and you say,
Okay,
let's extreme.
highlighter's probably wrong.
So-
Okay, bright yellow.
So they
I'm gonna
grab
go with-
the uniforms and they just dump Mountain Dew all over it.
Yes.
Dude, they're
and
going to
then
be hopped up.
No, they're
After,
extreme.
after the radiation dies down, they put them on. I've got them right in front of me, by the way.
Sterilized sites.
And apparently I've also got an advertisement playing in the background. You can't go on the internet anymore. Autoplay ads.
All right,
Public
sorry.
service announcement.
Sorry.
Get rid of those. All right. Winston Keenum. Keenum has averaged, he's been held under 140 passing yards in both of his starts.
Oh, brutal.
So you're not contemplating Case Keenum in any fantasy context, but you are thinking about him with the Tampa Bay defense, which has been the 8th best run defense. They could keep Gurley in check and make Keenum try to do something because he doesn't have anybody to throw to, and he doesn't have the playbook to throw the ball and be productive. So I don't mind the Tampa D in a streaming start here at all.
Sure.
I'm starting Todd Gurley.
Yep. Yeah. We had a bit of a scare there with Todd Gurley after a couple weeks of really bad production. He came through big last week. It's tougher though. It's tougher though when you have a guy like Gurley on an offense that's just so bad against a great run defense where you're counting on one of those
I'm
home
counting
run.
on one big play, a 45, 50-yard run.
I don't have any problem at all against a good run defense. The thing that I have a problem starting Gurley with is against a good offense. Because the only thing that's going to hamper Gurley, I don't think it's a great run defense. I mean, you saw him, he was able to destroy Arizona early in the year when we weren't scoring and the game was where they were still in the game. And so that's what I care about with Gurley is, are they going to be able to just keep handing the ball off? And I don't expect Tampa Bay to go up by 2 or 3 scores quick. I mean, it's possible, but I think that to me says Gurley's going to be able to continue getting the ball, and if he gets the ball, he's going to wear down a defense.
Okay, so are you? I guess we've already talked a little bit about Mike Evans. We're pretty comfortable with him, with Vincent Jackson being out. We've seen when Jackson was out, Evans just getting a gigantic whale size of targets.
The problem is just what we saw last week. The Rams, they're at home again. They held Calvin Johnson down. That offense didn't do much. The over-under in this game's 40. It's not that I'm not saying don't start Evans. I'm just saying I don't know if I'm going to get, a monster game out of it.
Evans is very scary for me. I'm an owner this week, and again, I just mentioned I was deciding between Randall Cobb and Mike Evans, and to me it was very, very, very close. In my rankings, when I statted guys out, I actually had Randall Cobb with a better game than Mike Evans, but Mike Evans has that high ceiling. He has that game that you can have in a playoffs that you need in week 15. You need a guy that can go out there and dump 30 and have that opportunity. He's got a much higher probability of that than Randall Cobb. And you've seen, the Rams, they had such a great defense for the first half of the year, especially against the wide receiver position. But in the last 4 weeks, they've given up a touchdown every single week, 2 touchdowns, half of those weeks, over 100 yards in 3 of the 4, and over 300 2 weeks ago. So they're a beatable team. I think you start Mike Evans in most situations.
All right, so Doug Martin and Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Now, Martin is in.
Yes.
He's locked and loaded.
Yep.
What about ASJ? Where does he fall into your tight end rankings for this week? He is, to me, a back-end one this week with some upside.
Yeah, I can absolutely agree with that. I mean, you at this point, for a guy who's had one great game in his career, you can't expect it, but you've seen it, so you at least know that the unicorn exists and it could happen. Vincent Jackson is out, like we were talking about, so he's not a terrible player. Where do we? I have him.
You've got him lowest. You've got him 18th.
Lowest, yeah.
And both Andy and myself have him 13th. I think in a playoff matchup, there's probably guys that are better either on your roster or, I would rather start Richard Rodgers personally against Oakland. I'd rather start probably Heath Miller or Zach Miller
Yeah.
over those guys.
Yeah,
over Safarian Jenkins.
I completely agree. Where there's guys who I'd rather play.
Yeah, a lot of the stock that you're putting into guys nowadays has a lot to do with the quarterback throwing to them. That's how I'm thinking about a lot of these matchups. You mentioned Richard Rodgers. I don't know. I might start ASJ over Rodgers, but when I think about Rodgers, I think about the Rodgers throwing to him as opposed to Winston and getting locked up in a matchup where I'm depending on Winston right now. Jets face the Cowboys. This game is Saturday, people. Do not get caught off guard. This is a Saturday night game that is called Thursday Night Football.
Yes.
It is Thursday Night
What?
Football. That's what they call it.
Wow.
When you watch the game on Saturday, it will be introed as Thursday Night Football.
Is that real?
That is real.
It is, because Thursday Night Football is
brand.
the brand.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
I never watched TJIF on Saturday. Come on.
Well,
I didn't ever watch Snick on Friday.
the point is you're going to be really confused about what day it is. Even more so when you hear the introduction to the show. The Jets take on the Cowboys. I want to talk. Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker are locked and loaded.
Correct.
In fact, something interesting I saw last week about Brandon Marshall. He was the third fastest speed measured last week.
Ooh. Marshall still got
Now
it.
the top two was the same guy
Who?
on 2 plays, and his name is Ted Ginn Jr.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's pretty fast.
But Marshall on that broken play actually hit the third fastest miles per hour in those next-gen stats, which was kind of interesting because he still got it, is my point. All right, so Ryan Fitzpatrick, we all like him as a start this week.
I love him this week.
It goes beyond like for Mike.
Yes.
It goes to love.
Yes.
I've got a healthy like for him this week. The question mark for me in this game is which Cowboys are going to show up. The Cowboys that have been playing.
That lose by 30 or lose by 4? No.
No, I mean, the Cowboys have been in most games all year because of their defense.
Yep.
And their defense has been very good. Now, they're out of the running. All their dreams and hopes of, hey, if we win, we're just one game back, that's crushed. That's gone. And we saw last week they didn't really show up. And so if that's the new Cowboys that come out and say, look, this year's over, we're not excited. We're not playing with all of our energy. We're not trying to save our team with our defense to get Tony Romo back. Then the Jets are going to go hog wild because they have to win out to get in, assuming, they're going against the Steelers and they don't have the tiebreaker. So I'm very interested to see which defense is going to show up for the Cowboys tonight. If I had to pick, I'm picking the one that phones it in, and I expect big things from
What
the
about the
Jets.
game on Saturday, though?
On Saturday.
Let's confuse them even more.
Some interesting stuff here for Darren McFadden, who Darren McFadden, for me, for weeks, has been an auto start because of volume. And you look back at what happened last week, very interesting. Darren McFadden got the majority of the snaps, 77% of the snaps, yet he only ran the ball 9 times, and he got 2 targets.
Guess who had 7 carries?
And I was just going to say, on 10 snaps, a guy who got 7 carries and looked okay, Mr. Robert Turbin. So for me, there's a little bit of concern here for the Darren McFadden volume play.
There's a lot of concern.
Especially against the Jets. It's already a bad matchup. So Darren McFadden is not an automatic start for me this
He was
week.
your sit of the week, right?
He was
It
mine.
was
He was
Andy's,
my
yes,
sit of the
okay.
week.
Which
Yeah.
I love it.
The Jets are the #1 rushing defense right now, and now they get to go up against Matt Castle. Matt Castle completed 13 of 29 passes in week number 14.
Man, do I love the Jets
I
defense
love the Jets
this week.
defense. Absolutely. Mike, are you starting them in your consolation ladder?
I am. And I'm also starting them in my money league, so you guys can eat it.
Hey, by the way, don't play Des Bryant.
Yeah.
He is my sit of the week.
Yeah, you can't do it.
He's still a guy that could go out and have a fine game, but I'm fine having that game on my bench because more often than not, the rest of the way here, with Castle throwing the ball and him not looking like the same Des Bryant, he's going to be putting up turds.
Oh, man.
The Bills
man.
the Bills at the Redskins. What do we think about this game?
It's a game.
All right, it's a game. The Bills, obviously, you have Tyrod Taylor. How do you feel about him against the Redskins in Washington this week?
I feel pretty good about Tyrod Taylor. He's been getting back on track where he didn't give you the monster game last week. He's still, but the connection with him and Watkins is really starting to develop, which is fantastic news for his outlook. But the problem with Taylor is the throwing attempts. If he's not getting you the touchdowns on his lower volume of passing, then he's giving you just an average game. So is he an automatic in guy for me? No, not necessarily. I think I have him as a lower 1. I would he's still an okay option for me.
Let me see some
let
of
me pull up my rankings.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to see some guys that you have around Taylor, because if people are making streaming decisions this week, I want them to know kind of where you have him laid out.
So I have Fitzpatrick ahead of him. Right now,
that makes sense.
Right now, I actually have Taylor a couple spots ahead of Big Ben. I think I'm going to take a look. I'll take a closer look at that. I'm not sure I would be willing to pull that trigger.
I have Matthew Stafford 1 spot ahead of Tyrod Taylor.
I believe I've got Taylor the highest this week. I think that what you mentioned a second ago, that connection starting to heat up with him and Sammy Watkins with the Redskins, I think he's a safe play, especially because he gets 50 yards on the ground every week. So his floor is something that should be okay against the Redskins in this matchup. But his ceiling, I mean, I know he doesn't have as many attempts, but he has several games with 3 touchdowns. He can run in a touchdown. So I like this matchup quite a bit for him. I would play him over Fitzpatrick, who I like. I've got him ahead of Derek Carr and Matthew Stafford. So to me, Tyrod Taylor is one of the stronger streams this week.
Are you guys as scared of Deshaun Jackson as I am in this game?
Yeah, coming off of his injury of maybe he's going to play, maybe he's not going to play. That's not a situation where I'm comfortable playing a guy his game is built on the speed and the long ball. Sure, he's been getting some more targets closer to the line of scrimmage, but for a guy who you want that big play, and he's saying he's hurt, he's not a guy I want to start.
If you're starting a Redskins running back because you've been depleted with the Rawls injury and these other the Stewart injury, you are starting a guy whose name begins with
Matt Jones.
It's Matt Jones,
okay.
But it's probably that coin you flip, the heads I win, tails you lose type of a coin.
Yeah,
heads you lose, tails you lose.
Yeah,
probably.
If you're starting Matt Jones, you're probably in the consolation bracket, either now or next week.
I don't know, man. I'm starting Fozzie Whitaker against you.
Well, that is true.
There's a lot of people
the,
who Thomas Rawls carried through and got enough done last week.
I like the comment that somebody made on our poll on Twitter where it said Fozzie Whitaker versus Tim Hightower. It's face off, because we've got like this pretty strong monster roster, and then you get down to our RB2 and it's Fozzie versus Hightower. Whew.
Just like we all thought.
Yeah.
In the beginning of 2008. Those guys might have been on the same roster in 2008. Fozzie Whitaker started he was playing for the Cardinals preseason.
Was he really?
Yes, he was.
Wow.
And if I'm wrong about that, I'm sure I will hear about it on Twitter, but I'm pretty sure he played at some point in time on our practice squad.
Oh, there you go.
So okay, other relevant, LaShawn McCoy's out there. Carlos Williams is expected to be back this week, but I'm not worried about him at all. You saw last week even, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Gillisley?
Oh, the backup running back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He scored, is my point. You still got a few carries to him. They'll go to Carlos Williams, and I'm not starting any backup there, obviously.
Yeah,
so,
Shady's tearing it up.
And then Rule 86, locked and loaded.
Absolutely.
Stick him out there. Jordan Reed. Chiefs face the Ravens in what I expect to be a lower scoring game. Matt Schaub, like I said, likely to start. Not a game that I'm worried about Alex Smith in at all. I think Alex Smith was my stream of the week.
He was. You staying on board?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I really like Alex Smith this week. He doesn't throw interceptions. The Ravens their interception rate is the worst of any team since the 70s. I'm not expecting this game to be disrupted by turnovers that somehow make it a more competitive matchup against the Ravens. I do expect the Ravens to play hard. They're well coached. They still go out and fight. And with with Matt Schaub back, maybe they're a little bit more efficient in the passing game than they would have been with Clausen, even with the interceptions. That being said, love the Chiefs D. They're an elite option for you this week. But I don't know about Travis Kelce, and a lot of people don't know about Travis Kelce. You still want to believe the upside is there, but with somebody like Jordan Reed, you've seen him put up 2 touchdown games. You've seen him have a baseline. Kelsey, 2 touchdowns seems like an impossibility right now.
The difference between Travis Kelce and Jordan Reed is targets. It's not necessarily the talent level. I think Jordan Reed, if you're just going talent, Kelce and Jordan Reed are actually among the elites of tight end. But can somebody get him the ball, please? Alex Smith, and Coach Reed, get Travis Kelce some targets. But until that happens, he has to be looked at as a lower end starter at this point, which is just infuriating.
And the Ravens are very good against the tight end. They have been
that
all year long, and they're very bad against the wide receivers. That's just such a combination that keeps tight end scoring low against this team. Travis Kelce on all 3 of our lists is quite low this week, and if you've got another good option, like that Jordan Reed, I would start him over him. The biggest question mark in this game to me by far, it all comes down to where, because Charkandrick West at the running back position is a guy, and I want to know if you guys have the same opinion that I do, but the way that I look at this matchup, if Ware is out, West is a great play, and if Ware is in, I don't really want West in my lineup, or Ware.
I do not have that opinion.
Okay, so you are, I'm guessing, on board with West either way?
That is right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think West represents actually I don't have him ranked super high, but I think he's one of those guys where you kind of rank him where you think they'll end up, but he has this larger upside to me where he could have a really, really good game this
Very
week.
similar to Mike Evans, what I was saying. I marked him where I thought he would end up, but he's got potential for a blow-up game. The problem is just, when he started taking over, he was getting, 20-plus carries a game, and then as soon as Ware came back, now it's like 9 or 10. And so, you're talking literally half of the production opportunity. So that's where I just see what's happened since Ware's been involved, and I don't like it. So
he did have a 57-yard touchdown callback last week on
True.
penalty, so he still has some of the. But I understand they might not need to really air it out much in this game, but I like West with some upside this week.
I have no problem with West, especially with Ware being banged up and the running back situation where it is of all the guys who have gotten hurt. I think West is still an upper level option, like West or guys you just picked up, West or Denard Robinson.
I would play West.
Yeah,
and
I would play West as well.
That's what I mean. Like the guys in Seattle, the guys in Carolina.
But this is a great example of just where I'm coming from. I've got West right now ranked as my 10th running back because I statted him without statting Ware because Ware completely missed practice yesterday. He wasn't involved at all. Wasn't even a limited participant. So if that continues and Ware is out, man, I love West, but if Ware is back, I would start Denard Robinson over West. I've got Denard as my 14th running back.
Yeah, I'm more basing the Ware stuff on he's going to be limited if he plays because of pain tolerance, rib injury, things like that. But hey, this is called forecasting for a reason. It's because we don't know how it's gonna play out. We don't, and so we have to play what we know right now. Jeremy Maclin, very confident in starting Maclin.
Very confident. I am the anti-Maclin guy through the year, but I think this matchup,
you're also going to be the wet guy.
Yeah,
because I'm going to win that bet.
Probably, unless he gets injured.
So, oh my God.
Oh, come on now.
I'm just saying.
So just so people know.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
So just so people know, the bet was
1,000 yards on the season
for Jeremy Maclin. He is presently at 935 yards.
And he's got 3 weeks to do it.
3 weeks left.
So it's going to happen without an injury.
Yeah. I hope he doesn't get hurt.
It looked, I mean, you rewind the tape.
He could go on a stretch like he had in the middle of the year.
I don't like Buck Allen.
I don't.
No.
And I don't feel confident enough with Kamar Aiken to start him. There is a place where I would start Kamar Aiken, but I don't feel that good about it in this matchup.
I feel okay about it. It's. I don't think it's the worst.
Buck Allen last week against a good defense in Seattle was terrible. Now, if you were in a point per reception or a half point per reception, he just kind of was bad.
Pretty terrible.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying at least he got 5 receptions and he got some points, but he was garbage against them for the most part. And I think Kansas City is a better defense against the run. So I don't like Buck Allen at all.
Yeah, I mean, Mike was right. He's gonna have a level of baseline. Schaub got him 8 catches a couple weeks ago.
12. 12 a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm sorry. 12 catches a couple of weeks ago. So there's gonna be a baseline for him. It's just, can he do anything with those? We'll see what happens. I'd start a lot of guys over him. He was a sit of the week this week. All right, Texans and Colts. Man, this is we talked about it earlier.
Oh man,
96 points. 96. This is the headline to me. Okay, it's not the Yates versus Hasselbeck.
Oh come on, that's
humor.
That's the story.
The headline is the Indianapolis defense giving up 96 points in the last 2 weeks. This has to have some sort of ramification on the Texans' offense. Do you agree? Do you not agree?
Oh,
you guys are the.
I apologize.
The mics talking to the puffy black things in front of you.
Yeah.
Is this thing on?
The question is really who's going to pick it up, because last week we can joke all we want about the Jaguars, the Jaguars being that
People
way.
are so mad at you right now.
But
Me?
No, him. We'll go. We can keep calling him the Jaguars.
Who would be the guy from? I mean, you got DeAndre Hopkins could completely go off. But are you confident just because it's the Colts starting one of these running backs? I'm not.
It's impossible to be confident, but can you look at the situation and see Denard Robinson having success last week? It's probably Polk. Grimes was more efficient, but Polk got the start from the staff and blew us out playing special teams. So I've looked at that. I had Grimes a little higher on my waiver priority because of big play. I think Polk's safer because he was given the start.
Last week, I said that it was going to be Polk, and I think I was right there. I think this week it's going to be Grimes.
You mean given the start or just the better?
The more carries. I think Grimes going to get the actual more carries in this game because of game flow. Polk is a guy that throughout the majority of the year has been a guy coming in on pass catching downs and things like that. That doesn't seem like what's going to happen against the Colts to me. As much.
2 weeks ago, Polk was 12 for 61, 5.1 a carry. This past week, he was 11 for 34, 3.1 a carry, catches a couple balls. Grimes caught a couple passes. Grimes was 7 for 53, had a really good week. I don't think I'd want to start any of them, but if I got news, let me give you an example. If I got news that Whitaker, who I'm having to roll out there because of my situation, that he's going to only have a handful of carries. He's going to be really sharing with Artis Payne. I might play Polk.
So you would play Polk over Grimes?
Yeah.
I would play Grimes over Polk, but that's my point. Is I think this is a situation we have to steer clear from. In week 15,
96 points over 2 weeks. They're going to be in the red zone. They're going to have opportunities in the red zone. Jonathan Grimes is a smaller guy. I think Polk would get those carries. Just putting it out there into the fantasy stratosphere. Mike has nothing to say on the matter whatsoever. He's just sitting there.
I was watching two Titans go head to head with some stellar analysis of Chris Polk versus Grimes.
These things matter.
They're
going to win you your week or they're not. They might lose me my week against Jason. All right, so TJ Yates has upside?
Yes.
Because he's facing this defense that's 29th against the pass, 25th against the run. Doesn't he have streaming upside?
Yes.
He does.
Let's say Eifert's out. Do you like Yates or McCarron? You know, the Colts are at home, so both teams are on. McCarron and Yates are on the road. AJ Green, DeAndre Hopkins, a defense that in San Francisco that at home has been a lot better than the Colts.
Yeah, I think
Just throwing it out there.
I would probably go Yates.
I can completely see the argument with DeAndre Hopkins. I got no problem if you want to go Yates, but I would go McCarron. And if you want to touch that bet, you can go ahead and touch that button.
Are you in with me?
Water bet.
This has a
Yates versus McCarron.
This is based off
bet of the year.
Eifert. I thought you said if Eifert is out.
Well,
that's where I was going.
I'll just take it straight up, in or out.
Yeah,
straight up. This is just be me and Andy.
All right.
Yeah, straight up. Yates, McCarron. I don't hate McCarron in 2 quarterback leagues as a streamer. I don't. I just think that the Texans are going to win this game. I think that the Colts are going the wrong direction right now, and they just don't have a lot of weapons on offense. You're going to not have Moncrief most likely. You can't run the ball with a beat-up Gore right now. I don't know what they're going to do.
This is as important a game as possible for these two teams.
I was going to say, for this week, this is a playoff
Yeah, this
game.
is a playoff game.
Yep. Boy, we got 3 more matchups to get through before our starts of the week. You think we can do that, or do you want to knock one over to tomorrow?
Well, let's keep going and see how far we get.
The Bears head to Minnesota. The Bears head to Minnesota, take on the Vikings. Cutler, Bridgewater.
Who are you going to start?
I'm not starting either guy.
Really? I think I'm okay playing Jay Cutler. I want to hear some reports of how the
Alshon Jeffrey.
Oh, I forgot
If
about
Alshon Jeffrey's banged up.
I thought that's what you were going to say, is you want to hear more reports on Alshon Jeffrey.
I want to hear more reports on Jeffrey, and I want to hear more reports on the Vikings defense.
The Vikings defense did not collapse last week.
I understand that they did not collapse last week, but can they sustain? We've seen these things happen where a team can rally for a game or two. So this will be the second one if they're missing all those starters in a divisional game. A team that the Bears know the Vikings very well. They know the flaws and the weaknesses. So can they take advantage of that?
Fair enough. Vikings are at home. The Vikings are an interesting fantasy team because you start. I think you start nobody on that team except for Adrian Peterson.
Correct.
Is there anybody you would even think about starting?
No chance.
All right.
Nobody.
So on the other side of the ball, Matt Forte is locked and loaded.
No.
Yep.
No. Team.
No.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to talk about.
What?
I wanted
when
to
I
bring
say
up
no, you say yes.
Yes, I wanted to bring up the conversation of the Chicago backfield so that we have actually had been tweeted at by some of our listeners saying, "Hey, can you guys talk about Matt Forte? How confident you are?" I saw you actually respond to one of those and say you are locked and loaded with Matt Forte. Now, I am not saying no that I wouldn't start Matt Forte. I've got him.
He's
decent.
a 1.
Yeah,
for you.
Yeah. But let's talk about the backfield because he got a touchdown the last 2 weeks, which is why we're thinking of him as locked and loaded. He had fewer carries last week than Jeremy Langford.
That's fair.
He got 10 carries. Jeremy Langford got 11 carries. They are really starting to split that workload there. And if Matt Forte goes and doesn't get a touchdown, Matt Forte is not going to be that valuable against a Minnesota run D. I mean, he had 10 for 45 last week. You take away that touchdown, and he just crapped your team.
I think it does have a lot to do with whether those linebackers are available for Minnesota. He's locked and loaded for me. But your argument, it hit home. It hit right here.
I'm sorry.
Because when you see a carry count of 10 carries, it makes you a little concerned.
And I just dove in a little bit deeper, which I had not looked at. Apparently, I did not realize this. Langford got 7 targets last week. That's Forte's role. Forte's the pass guy. That's what he does.
Yeah, Forte
but he got 2 targets.
Forte caught 1 ball last week.
Yeah, the week before he had 5.
Sure. I mean, that's the thing. We don't know. But when you're talking about all of a sudden, Forte's been so golden because
but who are you really going to start over him in that situation?
That's
because
the
that's
issue.
that's the problem. There's not. I mean,
I'll tell
Denard
you,
Robinson. Let me ask you that. One of these: Denard Robinson, Tim Hightower, Fozzie Whitaker.
Matt Forte over all of them. And I'll tell you the truth. When I did my rankings and I published them yesterday, Matt Forte was so low that it scared me on my rankings. And I took a look. And
Do we have that sound?
Yeah.
Do we have the scary sound?
You mean the duh?
Yeah. And I took a look and I said, would I really start all of these guys? You're naming the guys. It was Tim Hightower and Denard Robinson and Frank Gore and Latavius Murray. Would I really start those guys over Forte? And I had to wrestle with that, and I said, no, I wouldn't. Now, I think there's reason to possibly do that, and I'm scared of Forte, but that's why I moved him up, and that's why right now Forte is, like you said, ranked as an RB1 in the back end of the RB1. Yeah, it's a matter of, I mean, Forte still has the higher upside, so you've got to start Forte. But I'm scared for you, Forte
That
owners.
is
interesting.
Gut check.
Yeah.
Gut check time if you're looking at starting Denard Robinson over Forte, because the matchup and the volume says that's the right thing to do. But are you okay having Forte on your bench and losing?
So, because we have so much time on the show, we're wearing our Foot Clan Star Wars T-shirts today.
The Foot Clan awakens.
Which, by the way, you can actually get them on thefantasyfootballers.com, but that's not why I'm bringing it up. This is not a shameless plug for our shirts. I put stars on this shirt, okay? Because it's Star Wars. There's stars on the shirt. Every time I look down, I think I got bad dandruff.
I know. Every time I'm like, oh, there's lint.
I can't wipe these little stars off my shirt.
I'm not sure if you've ever been to Advertising 101, But when you talk about your glorious shirt that we have available,
you don't say dandruff,
and then you feel like I feel like I got dandruff all over my shirt. That's
you too can have maybe you've got some dandruff issues. This is the shirt for
cover
you.
Cover it up.
If your dandruff could fall up and become stars.
We'd like to thank tomorrow's sponsor,
Head and
Shoulders. Yes. We're just pre-plugging Head and Shoulders. Great.
Yes, let's set up opportunity here. Mike can't even, he doesn't even know what's going on. Mike is.
You got the fantasy dandruff.
All right, let's get one more game.
Titans
and then let's move.
at the Patriots. That cannot be the line. That is not the line. That is a wrong line.
That you have to be correct.
What, the favored by 3?
Yeah,
that
this
is
says
absolutely
Patriots favored by 3. And
unadulteratedly
I
wrong.
think you're missing a 0 after the 3. I'm pretty sure that's accurate. Patriots favored by 3.
So talk about that game, and I'll get the right line so that we know what the heck.
Well,
is going on.
you've got Julian Edelman that we talked about early. That's going to make I think an improvement for Brady. I expect him to be there. It's going to be a downgrade for Amendola. So watch the Edelman news. If Edelman is in, I would start.
And you're right. It's 13, 12.5, 13.
There you go. And if he's out, I'm still very confident with Amendola. Obviously, with LeGarrette Blount being gone, they've got to change some of what they're doing. And there's,
I think Brady, man.
Yeah,
Brady's going to be good this week. If he and you're sagging your head because I'm playing him against you.
Yeah, I
James.
know.
If James White's in the backfield, and Gronk's back on the field, practiced in full yesterday,
and Edelman's back.
Did you see they signed Jason? Just he's gone.
Mike
and I are left.
Pasture.
You know he's gone yet tomorrow.
Yeah, I will not be here tomorrow.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thanks, bud.
Leonard Hankerson was signed. Leonard Hankerson was signed by the Patriots. Leonard
Wasn't
Hankerson
he hurt?
He just was put on IR, but then was released from IR and picked up.
He's healthy.
Yeah, that's
but
weird.
he was on IR.
That's correct. But
like
he
a
is not on
mistake.
IR anymore. And
whoops.
I would not doubt that he has a contribution if Brandon LaFell keeps butterfingering the ball away.
I would doubt it. I would strongly
You know
doubt
what?
it.
You know what dawned on me? Like I was looking at that, I go, "Oh, they must want another guy who drops the ball like crazy." Like what? You already have Brandon LaFell. Why are you bringing in Hankerson? That's what I thought.
That's true. That's true. Hankerson has had some bad drops this year. Is there anybody on the other side of the ball that you would roll the dice with?
Mariota, if you're struggling for a QB.
Delaney Walker.
Delaney Walker, yes.
Yeah, well, Walker's an auto start, but I'm just saying. So Mariota, the Patriots defense has been great, so he's not a guy I'm advising. But in a pinch, you've at least seen what he can do, running the ball, throwing 4 touchdowns a game. So you could do worse.
Okay, we got to move on. Let's get into the starts.
Starts of the week.
I'm starting Selsun Blue.
You look like you're reading a tweet. I'm like, who's live watching the show? Alex Smith is my start of the week at the quarterback position. Russell Wilson had 5 through the air against Baltimore last week. The 31st against the quarterback in fantasy. And I think that Alex Smith will be solid enough to not lose you a fantasy playoff matchup, which is what you need. If you've got power positions elsewhere and you're streaming the quarterback position, you can go a lot worse and take a lot more risks than Alex Smith. He's not going to kill you with turnovers, and I think he'll put 1 or 2 into the end zone this week, if not more.
And I'm sticking with Ryan Fitzpatrick. He is my stream of the week. He's also my start of the week. I think Dallas is trending the wrong direction.
It's just really hard to stop Marshall and Decker.
And there's wrapping it up, so to speak, in Dallas. And Ryan Fitzpatrick has been dominating. Like we talked about earlier, if Russell Wilson wasn't doing what he's doing right now, the focus would be what Ryan Fitzpatrick is doing. He has 9 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. A game, it was an overtime game, but almost 400 yards. So I just think he is a great, safe streaming option.
So when you mention Ryan Fitzpatrick, we need to give the context there. Same with Alex Smith. Would you start Fitzpatrick over Stafford?
That one I have struggled with that, simply because the
start of the week.
No, not the start of the week, but just what will Stafford do? We know that the Saints have been an auto QB start.
Not recently.
So I'm saying, so last week they kind of shut down Winston, and Stafford has looked either white hot or white cold.
White not.
I've got Stafford as my last QB1. He's QB 12, so I've got Fitzpatrick ahead of him personally. I would rather start him.
Ryan Fitzpatrick or Derek Carr against the Packers in Green Bay?
Derek Carr.
Isn't that game in Oakland?
No.
Yeah, that game's in Oakland.
That game is in Oakland.
That game is in Oakland.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with Derek Carr this week. I've got him one spot behind Ryan Fitzpatrick. But since we're talking about all these quarterbacks, let me give my start of the week is Blake Bortles. Blake Bortles has been really hot lately. He has 3 weeks in a row with multiple touchdowns, 5 touchdowns 2 weeks ago, 4 touchdowns. One of those was on the ground last week. And now he's going up against Atlanta, who has a decent pass defense, but they're imploding. I mean, they look bad. They're playing bad. It's in their heads. Obviously, Cam Newton ripped them apart last week. I think that this is a game where you can trust Blake Bortles.
Let me ask you, though. I mean, who at this point is not starting Blake Bortles? Because for you to make him your start of the week, I need to know who that's helping.
You want to know what is crazy is that Blake Bortles was started in 56% of leagues. So a lot of people aren't starting Blake Bortles, and I'm saying, what are you doing? He's been on fire. He's a great option. He's a top half QB1 this year. I'm clearly starting Blake Bortles over Big Ben this week. That's me.
Aaron Rodgers. Cam Newton.
If you weren't watching on YouTube, you saw my life flee my body at that question.
That's the second time in the last 10 minutes.
Okay. Drew Brees.
I think I've got Blake Bortles ahead of Drew Brees.
You do. I was testing your might.
All right, we got to get moving. Running backs.
This is the longest show in the history of the world.
I wasn't doubting the start at all when I brought that up. What I was saying was I'm trying to think about the guy who's actually got Blake Bortles, because a lot of people grabbed him when they had Big Ben and they had other guys, and they're saying to themselves, well, how confident can I be? And I appreciate that you gave him that confidence. I was just trying to think about the other guys they're thinking about.
Yep.
I think
which is the guys we mentioned.
Most owners of Blake Bortles, I believe, most owners of Bortles have another quarterback option. They're not just rolling one guy. They're not a Rodgers team where they say, I don't need a backup. So I am fine with it.
All right, running back starts of the week. Let's try to get through these. Who's your guy, Mike?
I'm going with Darren Sproles, and this is especially in a PPR focus because edge speed is the Achilles heel of the Arizona defense. We've seen it week after week after week.
The linebackers cannot get laterally to the edge.
The Minnesota, when they tried to go up the middle, were not successful, and as soon as they started going around, even tight end screens to the edge of slow behemoth men like Kyle Rudolph were having success. So if they game plan properly, and we know that the running back position up in Philadelphia is a complete influx of they're just stirring the bowl. They have no idea what's going on. So I think that they will game plan Sproles, and I got him down for 5 or 6 catches. I think he's going to be great.
For me, I'm sticking with the Jaguars over there with Denard Robinson. And the reason that I'm making him my start of the week is because
Jaguars.
There were
start of the week.
So many running backs that looked great during the waiver period. You had your Brandon Bolden. You had, Fozzie and Cap. Bryce Brown, an amazing start. Denard Robinson, he's really the only guy that I want to start from the majority of waiver claims this week. The Atlanta run D has not been good, and I think you're going to get a good week from him.
And I'm going to go with Tim Hightower. I cannot get the number 28 out of my head. 28 carries last week, and more than Ingram had all year. No competition. They don't believe in Spiller. Spiller won't be back. Hightower's paid his dues in practice, and he was okay last week. He scored a touchdown. I can't throw 28 carries out the window for very many other options. So I'm just starting Tim Hightower if I have him. The line probably ends at about Forte for that situation, but I like Hightower a ton. I'll just jump over to my wide receiver. My wide receiver is Michael Floyd. He is playing, even this morning, Bruce Arians came out. He's playing at an elite level. Last 4 healthy games, over 100 yards. He's scoring touchdowns. He's a big play receiver, and we've seen Philadelphia get torched before.
A perfect matchup for him. I was so upset because I went to make Michael Floyd my clear-cut #1 start of the week, and you had already had him in there. I really love Michael Floyd this week. So instead, my real start of the week is Ted Ginn Jr.
Oh, I thought it was Dwayne Bowe.
Well, Dwayne Bowe.
Hey now, Dwayne Bowe Truthers unite.
Ted Ginn Jr.
It's just you, buddy.
has been doing it all year. He
Then I'm
has
the
big
president.
upside. In the playoffs, you have to have a guy that has top-end potential that can put up a big game.
Wait, who did you say your start was?
Ted
Ted
Ginn
Ginn.
Jr.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So with Ted Ginn, you've got him in back-to-back weeks with 2 touchdowns. He's been on fire. He's done it through the year, and he's facing the New York Giants that have given up, those type of big plays. So I feel confident. I mean, I'm not telling you can't get a 4 points out of Ted Ginn Jr. You can, but you can also get a 30 points. And if you need a high potential guy, Ted Ginn is a guy that is still on waivers. He started in almost no leagues, and he should be. He can win you a week this week. And my other honorary mention was Doug Baldwin. He's only started in 60-something% of leagues. He's going up against Cleveland. The running game is in shambles.
That'll be up this week.
I know, but I'm just saying, if you've got him, have the confidence to start him personally.
Doug Baldwin or Antonio Brown this week?
I knew you were going to do something like that.
Oh,
Antonio Brown against Denver. Doug Baldwin against Cleveland.
what kind of?
I know
what
my
kind of
answer.
man
all
are
right.
you?
Okay. I know my answer. And my answer is Doug Baldwin.
Antonio Brown.
I'm in Antonio Brown as well.
Makes me want to gouge my eye out.
With
Just-
water.
No
I'm
way.
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No way.
All right, Mike, who's your wide receiver starter?
My wide receiver start of the week is Golden Tate. He is getting 10 targets a game. With something weird is going on with Calvin Johnson. Add in the fact that they're in New Orleans. They are on prime time, and you know who shines on prime time? Mr. Drew Brees. When the lights are on, Drew Brees is always fantastic. And why is that? This for the guy in the Lions? Because the Lions will have to keep pace with the score of Drew Brees and his wide receiver core. So I like Golden Tate a lot to get targets, possibly get in the end zone.
Might as well let you continue down the line here with your tight end start of the week based on what you just led into.
Same game, Ben Watson. They're at home, and it's primetime Drew Brees. And Watson has been great when they're at home, so I'm firing him up. And if you're saying, who am I going to fire up? If I got Ben Watson and I got Travis Kelce, I'm playing Ben Watson.
Cool.
Gross. But I'm doing it.
My tight end start of the week seems a little obvious at first glance. I hope to our listeners, it's Gary Barnidge. He's been as consistent and as good a tight end as you found in the league. He's still only started in about 60% of leagues, which blows my mind. And so if that's what's happening, you've got a roster with a lot of people out there where you've got Barnidge and someone else, and then you've got the matchup of Seattle, which a lot of people think is really scary. We've said it on the show a lot. Seattle is terrible against the tight end. It's going to be Cleveland's main option. So I really think Gary Barnidge is a safe play this week. I'm giving full confidence. Don't be afraid of Seattle. Start Gary Barnidge. He's going to be fine.
What cannot be seen by the Foot Clan on the video or in the podcast is that you had actually spelled it Gary Barnage.
Oh, really?
And I think that is a fantastic,
Gary Barnage.
very fancy name for Gary Barnage. That's an international spy. Gary
Barnage.
Gary Barnage.
Hey, he got
005.
paid. You can call him whatever you want. Heath Miller is my start of the week with extreme excitement. Now, I am going to conditionalize it because he was – no, listen.
I'm very excited to maybe play Heath Miller.
if he
That
had-
escalated quickly. Go on.
He didn't practice yesterday, guys. He played great last week, but he didn't practice yesterday. So my condition is that he plays.
That's pretty good. That's
if
pretty
he
good.
plays, he had 10 catches last week. Listen, the Denver defense, for all of its glorious ability, has given up double digits to the tight end position 3 straight weeks. They're 23rd against the tight end in fantasy football, and the pass rush of Denver puts Big Ben in a position to throw short. Those 10 catches last week were on 10 targets. He catches what's thrown at him. He's reliable. Big Ben loves him. I really like Heath Miller. You're an Eifert owner who, by the way, breaking news, didn't practice today again. All right? I don't think Eifert's going to be on the field. Heath Miller. Heath Miller's a great
So
start.
you're telling me if Heath Miller doesn't play, you're not going to start him?
Correct. Yeah. I'm going to conditionalize my starts on them playing.
So
You know what? I'm
You know who I
conditionalizing-
don't like this week?
Who's
John Stewart. Jonathan Stewart.
Sit of the week.
I'm going to conditionalize
Thomas
all
Rawls.
my starts
Jamal Charles.
that if they have bad weeks, they were not my start of the week. How about that?
I
Well,
think that's going to give you good odds.
I'm not surprised. All right. That does it for this everlasting
mercy.
episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. We'll be back with the rest of the matchups and a very good. We got Daily Dose tomorrow. We'll give you some DFS knowledge.
Yep.
Break that down for you, and an assortment of injury updates. Get you ready for the weekend. We want championships for the Foot Clan. We want to see them on Twitter, by the way. You bring home the title. I want to see a picture of that trophy and you. And if you want to intersperse some very defeated, dejected league mates in the background of the photo, that'd be great too.
Yeah, that can't hurt.
Maybe they're being watered using the Wheel of Water app. I don't even know. Don't know what's going on. So,
Foot Clan for life.
any parting words?
A friendly reminder, be kind. Keep the spoilers off of social media,
Yeah,
people.
and may the force be with your team.
Yeah, goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at www.thefantasyfootballers.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.